So my job today is to talk about what progression opportunities are there within the universities for nurses. So can I just please check how many of you are nurses? So everybody. How many of you have got, I'm just trying to understand where you are so I can pitch my talk according to your needs. So how many of you have got a degree in nursing? Okay, and how many of you are graduate from the UK? So there are quite a lot of people who have graduated from internationally. How many of you have got masters? Okay, anyone with a PhD? Okay, great, thank you so much. So nursing is a profession which takes you or provides you the opportunity to be anything that you want and to be anywhere where you want to be. Having said that, it's quite underrated. People don't necessarily understand what we do, and I think we find it difficult to describe what we do to people as well, because there are too many branches. There are issues with also, I don't think we spend enough time trying to understand the identity to be able to describe who we are. And therefore, even when people are within the profession, we are just too busy. All across the world, there is too much shortage of nurses. So which then means that in whatever hospital or setting that we work in, we are just too busy to be able to explore and find what else is available for us and what is it which we can do. Would you agree with that? Yeah. So that means that we don't necessarily find out what options are available to us, and we don't necessarily are able to articulate or then tell the world that this is what we need and this is what we are doing. So I just thought to talk a little bit about, what is it that you could do as nurses when you want to progress your career, and what options are there in terms of education and stuff. So what I'm going to do is, I just thought maybe it's easier to talk about a little bit as to who I am. So at the end of the day, I'm a nurse, and I've just given you my title earlier on. So how have I reached to the stage where I am to basically give you an example as to what as nurses we can do, and then to talk about pathways to join and progress in nursing, which most of you probably is not relevant to you, but it's a good information to help somebody else, and then to look at career progression opportunities via education. Okay, so this is my part, which shows kind of my life. So my life started off in Pakistan, in Karachi, which is one of the biggest metropolitan city of the country. And in Karachi, there is a small little place called Liari. It's, you can call it kind of a next to a slum sort of thing. And there is a small little hospital here, Liari General Hospital, where I started off doing with the diploma in nursing programs in 93, 94. I'm eldest of 6 siblings. And why I was interested in nursing is really interesting, because it wasn't about, these days when you interview students, you learn, oh, well, I want to help people and I want to do this. I don't think that any of that, I didn't even know any of that. All I wanted was the uniform that nurses working in armed forces wear. So that's a very trendy and very kind of, I used to be a very sick child, and my father was working in Pakistan Navy, so therefore used to visit Shiva Naval Hospital very frequently. And I liked that uniform, and that's why I just wanted to be a nurse. I didn't know anything about how easy or difficult it would be. Being the first child means that there was, at that time, there was not a lot of career counseling. The stuff in the 90s was not, any of that sort of thing was not available. And when you are the eldest child of your parents, I think you're the guinea pig, because they try and experiment with you. They don't know what's going on, and you don't know what's going on. So I think that's how, and my mom used to be very strict. She had this thing about that with regards to girls' education, that if she gets educated, my God, I don't know what she's going to do. But anyway, we crossed that hurdle, got into the nursing program, and that changed a lot. So this is the place where I started doing diploma in nursing and midwifery. completed that, and then at the bottom here, this is Aga Khan University. So I completed my earlier education from Liari, and then worked for a couple of years in cardiology unit in a hospital, and then came to do my bachelor's of nursing. At that time, it used to call, it still is called, is post-RN BScN program. Here you would see the terms post-registration nursing, and there it still is called, people who have done diploma in nursing, then if they go and do a degree, that's called post-RN nursing program. So this is the institution where I did post-RN BSc program and then master's program. Fast forward few years, then this is University of Sheffield, where I came and into UK, and I started doing my PhD. And at the same time, when I came to UK, I worked in nursing homes as an elderly care nurse. Then I also worked as in NHS Direct as a telephone triage nurse. And I chose the options which suited the timings of my study. This was the busiest time of my life, because I started doing my PhD when my eldest child, who is 15 now, he was 3 months old. And the second one was born during PhD. So I had to find ways to do it in a way where I could earn some money. I'm there with children at home, and at the same time enables me to complete my PhD. So working in care homes means that I didn't have to use my brain a lot. What that means is that when you are a nurse for quite some time, things becomes quite automatic, you don't necessarily always have to think through what you're doing, and even when you have to think through, it's less trouble. Which then means that when I am at work, I can be at work, and it was in a way intellectually kind of relaxing time, and when you go back to your PhD, you can do it. I may not be able to explain it properly, but I can explain it in the way that if you are a lecturer or if you are in a teaching position while you're doing your PhD, it's quite hard. The reason being that you are using your intellectual capacities in both of these different roles and stretching it. So that kind of thing was quite helpful, especially with young children as well. So then this place is University of Hull. This was my first position as a lecturer, and in 2012-13 I started working there as a lecturer in adult nursing, and then for quite some time I was commuting from Sheffield to Hull, and I'm not a very good commuter. I get really stressed. My children were young. So I have 3 children, and so then when I got the opportunity, I got back to University of Sheffield again in 2014-15, and since then I'm there. I started off as a lecturer, then senior lecturer, and now as professor. So this picture is taken from, I don't know how many of you are aware of Sigma or STTI. Is anyone aware of this? No. It's in UK we have got a 5 more chapters. It's an international organization for nurses working towards leadership research and other aspects of helping and supporting nurses all across the world. It has got the chapters in every country. So have a look at that and see what you think, and it may be a useful connection if you wanted to develop yourself internationally. So a lot has happened within this period of time where I worked. So these are the main positions that I worked in, but now I'll talk about that in a little later. So within this time there was research going on, there was positions which were related to clinical practice, there were management related stuff, and you know that as nurses we can either go into education, leadership, management, or research. Is everyone aware of that? And I have tried to juggle all of these wherever possible. In terms of my research, I look at these 3 aspects, looking at gender-based violence, consanguinity and genetic risk associated with it, and healthcare professionals' preparations, and how we can feed the information that we have from public health and other aspects into the training of nurses and other healthcare professions. And the thread which goes around this is health inequality. So that's my research that I do. These are some of the outputs. So I use participatory methods, and for example, this is the leaflet that we created to inform services as well as people who are who wanted to know about genetic services, to tell them a little bit more about cousin marriages and what genetic risks are involved, and some of the papers which I've mentioned here. With regards to gender-based violence, I do a lot of work around intimate partner violence, and students and registered nurses preparation to support victims of abuse, women from black and minority ethnic backgrounds, and domestic abuse. And I've done stuff with National Screening Council in terms of developing guidelines for DVA screening and few other things. So this is one of the domestic violence and abuse game. This is not the game, this is the MOOC. This is the online course which is available on Future Learn. And now I have got about 22,000 students on this course worldwide. This is an online course which is available free. I think people only pay if they wanted a certificate, and then they can use as a CPD. And that's the interactive board game that was developed with a mind to work with healthcare professionals, and especially nursing students, but now it's been used by social workers, police officers, and people working in the area of domestic abuse and supporting victims and perpetrators. We then moved in and developed, so this was the board game. It was just before COVID, and now we converted into a digital game so people can play it online, so that you don't have to be in one room to be able to achieve that. At that time, the idea was sort of when I said, when I'm going to make a digital game about this, or even the interactive game like the previous one, it was, how can you talk about something that sensitive in a game kind of situation? That's completely wrong. So there was some opposition, but not a lot. But most of this game as well as the online course, people thought it's really difficult to talk about them, but we usually have 99% positive feedback. So which means that if you design it well, it does work. One of the other thing which I do is I am editor-in-chief of International Nursing Review, which is the official journal of International Council of Nurses. So if any of you are interested in publications ever, you can have a look. I'm also on the editorial board of the Journal of Advanced Nursing and Journal of Interpersonal Violence. So you can see a theme in terms of going into it. I work here as Professor of Nursing, and this is a health show which I do on a local radio every Friday. So the reason for telling you about all of this is not to brag about myself or to say that, you know, this is who I am, but I just thought what would be the best way to tell somebody what is it that you can be, rather than using my own example. So I just think using my own examples, I could tell you that coming from a very small place in a big city, in a developing country like Pakistan, I never thought that I would be a professor in a red brick Russell Group University in Sheffield in the UK. I never thought that I would be speaking on a radio for an hour talking about XYZ things and, you know, doing something. I never thought that editing a journal, my God. There was a time as an undergraduate student when I used to think of pick some articles in Nursing Times or Nursing Standard, and I used to think, my God, who are these people who write these articles? You know, I would like to meet them, that how good is this article? Would I ever be able to publish? I never thought one day I would be editor-in-chief of an international journal. The day when I got published in Journal of Advanced Nursing, it's like you must have used articles in your studies and stuff. Have you ever thought that I'm going to be publishing in these journals? Even when you think about it, it just seems like a too far thing, you know, which you may be able to do it or you may not be able to do it. It just seems like kind of not reality. So the reason for saying this is that all of these opportunities and whatever I've been able to do, that was because I was a nurse, and that was because nursing provided me with those opportunities. So that's what education and nursing can do for you, regardless of which kind of, you know, level of your career you are. So there are various different routes to nursing. This is probably not relevant to many of you because you all are nurses. Is there anyone who is not a nurse and thinking of joining nursing? So we all are nurses here, isn't it? So we know that within UK, you could start off with as, as a healthcare assistant, etc., and then you can get into nursing through university education. It's a degree program, a 3 years degree program that you have to complete. People can join nursing as a postgraduate entry students as well, which means that they can come from any discipline, but do a 2 years degree program and then become registered nurses. And then there are options for people to come and practice again if they've been registered earlier on and have decided to leave for some reason. And then, of course, people can move from various different countries to other countries to become nurses, as long as they follow the registration process and meets the demands of that. In the UK, other options which are coming up is nursing degree apprenticeship and associate degree apprenticeship as well. And I think all of these aspects are there to enable people to get onto the ladder. What is it which you can do when you are already a registered nurse? There are various different routes. Clinical, so you can excel in your clinical roles that you're doing in a particular clinical specialty. For example, if you all have chosen the ENT one, and sometimes specialties or subspecialties like ENT, people might think, well, what are the options available? But regardless of which program you go for, if you relate this to how you want to do it, you can become an expert in the field that you want to be known for. Be it's ophthalmology, be it's ENT, be it's research, be it's anything else. There are developed kind of specialties. For example, cancer is one example. Stroke probably is another example. Anybody else would want to give any other examples of specialties that you already know about? Come on. Gynecology, yeah? Yeah, nephrology, renal, anything else? A bit louder. Theatres, yes, yeah. So there are various different things that you can do, and it also depends on where you want to do it. So if you are in the community, GP practice is an area in itself where you can be practice nurses, you can be, you used to call it advanced nurse practitioners, but now it's they're called advanced care practitioners because we've opened it up to other healthcare professionals as well. But still, majority of advanced care practitioners are nurses, which then means that they develop the skills and expertise of well, nurses are independent practitioners anyway, but it's more towards prescribing and diagnosing and kind of, treatment options as well. So these are some of the things that you do. In terms of the university level education, of course, you've got various options which start from undergraduate programs. So if you are already a registered nurse and if you don't have a degree, you've done diploma in nursing from earlier on, then what you could do is, and the best option would be to top it up. In the UK, it's called top up to degree level programs. You use post-RN, BSCNs. Terminology is different depending on where you are, but you could use the module or the credits that you have completed in your earlier education and top it up to get to a degree level education, which is about 120 credits that you need to achieve. So what universities do is they help you look at how many credits you already have and how many credits you need to do to be able to then get onto the programs and complete that. These programs are available as face-to-face programs where you can actually go and attend the programs. You can also join some online programs offered by different universities, and you could also do a sort of a blended sort of approach into the programs. You don't necessarily need to be enrolled into a degree if the time is precious. What you could do is there are models where you can build up modules. So you could sign up to, you talk to them that I would like to complete a degree, but what they will do is they can tell you, like, these are the options of the modules that you need to choose from, and you can pick up the modules and work with your way through depending on whatever time frame you have to complete your degree program. If you already have an undergraduate degree, then postgraduate programs may be options for you. There are various different postgraduate programs that you can do within nursing and outside nursing as well. So it doesn't limit you to any particular kind of place, or that you only are eligible to do stuff within nursing and you can't do other aspects. It's transferable as any other degree. Within nursing, you could go for advanced practice. So there are advanced ACP programs, advanced nurse practitioners. Depending on your field, you would also find pediatric practitioners, neonatal practitioners, but most of them are now summed into the programs called advanced practice. In these programs, you learn, depending on what your field is, the diagnostic skills, you do prescribing related modules, and other aspects that help you develop the role. You can also go for postgraduate programs on other sort of aspects, and not necessarily at advanced care practitioners, but something to do with clinical research. So people go on and do masters in clinical research, which enables them to explore careers in research and clinical research within academia as well as clinical settings. You could do programs on leadership management. People have done masters in business administration and other aspects that you can develop. And HR, human resource, is another field which is not being tapped in by nurses as much, but it would be useful to have nurses into those positions. And why I'm saying this, because usually a lot of those things, when we talk about that, people not necessarily understanding the needs of particular professions because they have not been themselves. So with medicine, what you find is things are quite clear for many people depending on any country which they practice. The reason being that many people do medical degrees, but then they diversify it. They probably go and do business, they probably go and do HR related aspects, they do something else, whereas nurses tend to stick to the profession or completely leave the profession. And there is a middle way to do it, where you don't necessarily have to completely ditch your profession, but what you could do is you could use the skills and knowledge that you have gained, but go for the passion that you have and combine these two together to make life better for yourself and for fellow nurses as well. You could also go for other programs which are not in nurses. So I've given an example for research and leadership, but for example, masters in public health, epidemiology, biostatistics. Those are some of the examples that you can think of and choose from. You also have options about if people do not want to do the whole program, they can do as broken programs too. So for example, you sign up to programs, but you do it in a modular format, depending on which university you are going to go for. You can do online programs. So for example, University of Sheffield does Advanced Nursing Studies, which is an online program, and I am program director for that. So which is a completely, everything that you study is online, and you can sign up to those things. Now, one of the things which I would like to mention, never go for an online program thinking that it's an easier option. It actually is a very difficult option, and it's never easy. The reason being that when you are in face-to-face programs, you will turn up one morning like you all have done here, sit there, listen to people talk, and go home, and you have learned something. And because of the peer pressure and everything else, you kind of, you will speak, you will think, you will reflect, and the only thing at the end you will have to do is, apart from reading and everything else, is doing your assignment. Whereas an online program is harder. The reason being that you are in your home and you need to have that motivation to be able to open your computer, watch recordings or classes, and kind of, having that self-motivation to be able to achieve that task. And that usually is quite hard. Then you have got CPD modules and programs. So for example, this day today, where you develop skills and expertise in your chosen field, and through that route, you're using reflective practice and other aspects, you develop yourself into the roles that you would like to practice in. And then of course, you've got the options of doctorates, and you could go to the route of PhD, which is mostly a research intensive route, or you could go for a doctorate, professional doctorate route, which is more sort of a professional route, is not that research intensive. Depending on what your choices are, these are the various different things that you can actually do. In addition to that, there are other sort of opportunities that mostly universities and sometimes universities and hospitals associated with each other offer, which includes various, like for example, action learning sets or leadership programs, which helps you to develop specific skills that you want to develop according to your role. So the bottom line is you can make your role whatever it is that you like it to be. Let's say if you've gone to a program which is related to research and you wanted yourself to be developed in the area of ENT, you can still do that. You can still do that because each of the modules that you're going to complete, you are the one who are choosing the topics of assignment and the topic of work. So choose something which is related to your work, which then allows you to develop your knowledge and understanding of that subject, and at the same time developing the skills that the program wants you to develop. So at the end of that program, you will become an expert in the field that you want to practice in. Does that make sense? So that's the sort of, in a nutshell, explanation of what opportunities are there for you in the university. I'm not sure if I have taken too much time or I'm okay with the time, but I'm very happy to take any questions. Thank you.